Hey, it's Soul with another video brought to you by our super awesome sponsors. I ask you to consider becoming one too by checking out a link below. So, I hate leaks. Leaks. Thank you very much. But I do like speculation. In fact, I love speculation. Leaks or fake leaks are kind of like speculation given form with an intent to sell them to the viewer or lie to them. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. The latest speculation coming from the World of Warcraft fandom disguised as a leak. You probably have seen it, World of Warcraft
Shadowlands, rah.
I want to be excited for a Shadowlands-like expansion, I really do. In fact, I can see certain themes being explored, such as the partnership between Sylvanas and Helya. Is Ny'alotha kind of like the Shadowlands or the Purgatory for the old gods? And what other surprises await us on these so-called Dragon Isles? Out in the wild are a pair of related leaks that tell us we're off to the Shadowlands. It provides a very convincing context of where we're going to go, how we get there, the zones we'll visit, and hints of what we're going to be doing there, which is to put a stop to the old gods' ambitions to revive the Black Empire. Brah. But like all the leaks that we've seen coming out before BlizzCon, they all end up being fake. So today we're going to look at this particular pair of leaks, but I'm going to be less excited, and I'm going to be a bit more like the critical skeptic. I've seen more than my fair share of excited sounding, oh my god, this would be awesome guys, wouldn't it? You know, like those kinds of pieces. And I want to give a little bit of a different spin. So sit tight as we talk about how good these leaks are looking these days, why we still shouldn't ever believe them, and how can we change some of these ideas so that maybe they'll be slightly more interesting or might make a little bit more sense. I think this is going to be a lot of fun because historically I'm like wrong about so many things, so for me to talk about this, maybe I'm jinxing it and this will actually turn out to be true. So if that really does happen and you're watching this video, leave a comment and bury me in it. I'd like to start off by giving a good bit of praise for these particular leaks because at face value, they're very convincing. Whoever made these up definitely did their homework. They understand the Blizzard patterns pretty well. In the case of the map, there are a lot of tie-ins with recent developments in today's World of Warcraft. They make sense, like tying in the Silverian approach to this Silverian mount that was released in the shop not too long ago. Referring to Hakar as Bwonsamdi's boss and giving him presence to the Shadowlands, that's still something that we haven't found out, so bringing that in and bringing us this sort of revelation as an answer that some people have talked about but not everyone, is pretty interesting. It doesn't take much of a trained eye to see that the subplot of the Battle for Azeroth expansion has been the advance of death. From Sylvanas to the Lich King to Bwonsamdi and Aegir and Vol'jin and a hint of Helya, something dead is going to happen very soon. All it takes from there is a motivated individual to look at a bunch of different lore speculation videos and then piece together this all-star list to pander to the theorists. So let's take a look at this map first. I tried to fully debunk this image, and I'll be frank, I failed. I don't have the experience or the equipment to analyze this fully, but I'll spare you the details and tell you that I'm quite convinced this is in fact a picture of an image taken from a projector in a big room. Maybe if I had a really crisp monitor and good camera filters or just a camera that took in better blacks, then I could create this image, but for now, it is what it is. It's a picture of a map. The best that I can do to cast doubt on this map is to refer to a person named Golden Yak over on the MMO Champion forums, who has a long history of producing fan-made expansions. This right here is a map of a potential South Seas expansion, including what looks like a much larger version of Nazjatar. Looks kinda cool. This has a vaguely similar shape to the Shadowlands map, including a center to link the zones together. So this map might have been an inspiration to the leaked map. But this second image, which requires a lot more production quality in order to look authentic, does have a few flaws. But let's also keep in mind that anyone can play this off and say, oh well shucks, this screenshot could be from a cinematic that's still a work in progress. Well played. First off, let's not be too impressed by the custom sails here. Here I have a post by John Matthews, who does a lot of production work for Bellular and Method. He recreated this model without too much trouble. Meanwhile, I, who am a complete imbecile at this sort of stuff, made this, mostly to make a point that with some know-how and very little else, you too can fool your friends. There are a few other annoying flaws too that don't really debunk this image, but it does at least cast a little bit of doubt. The boats themselves are, well, they're kinda janky. definitely in need of repair compared to the smaller boats out there. The spirits that you see in the screenshot cast shadows, and if nothing else, you can credit Blizzard for being mindful enough to not let spirits cast a shadow. But aside from the overuse of lighting effects, this is still really an eye-catching image. It's enough to make you wonder, what if? And that's the goal. In fact, if these pictures were the only thing that were released without context, I would be more convinced that it was real. But it's the details that get people to both think and doubt. I believe the information just drags down what otherwise would be a really good troll. That said, apart from a few details, I like the zone and the story bits. I would play this, saving souls from the void, helping Helya and Sylvanas, or doing something with the two of them, and visiting a Hades-like experience over in Zeros. Yeah, dude, sign me up. But this leak also asserts that Tinkers are also going to be the next class, and at the moment, I'm not convinced that WoW even needs another class. I get that there's a pattern to follow, but really, should Blizzard let a pattern be a designer's ball and chain that they have to drag around? This is just my opinion, but I think that the current problems that players have with classes are not going to be solved by adding another class to the balancing equation on top of actually fixing class design. I am part of the camp that wants Tinkers, but it just doesn't feel right in a Shadowlands expansion. Before this, each new class was tied directly to the theme of an expansion. Death Knights for the Lich King, Monks for Mop, Demon Hunters for Legion. So for Shadowlands, bringing in classes like Necromancers and Dark Rangers, that would be really redundant. But imagine this:
Engineers of Azeroth band together to fight in the Shadowlands. Tinkers, you are the answer.
No, I'm just not sold on it. Personally, I can't even imagine the Shadowlands as this giant landmass that we visit, like it's like the Shadowlands is another continent. The Shadowlands is written to be tied to Azeroth, kind of like the Emerald Dream is, like a mirror image. Blizzard can always retcon and go the continent route, but what if they switch things up with how they did world design and they made the Shadowlands as like a series of rifts that appear in certain locations around Azeroth? Surrounding each of these rifts is going to be some sort of like a world update around it. So let's pretend that a section of Stone Talon Mountains had a rift, causing the nearby land to decay. So it's like, okay, let's go down in there and try to help out. So you hop into those rifts and you walk into basically a zone. It would kind of be a reflection of the zone that you were in, although I would prefer that it kind of be redrawn from the ground up so that it reflects, hey, this is the Shadowlands. This is definitely not your typical Stone Talon Mountains. I think if Blizzard went this route, the zones would kind of have a more Argus feel. So you would hop in, you would be in an instanced zone to be closed off from everything else. You would see impressive skyboxes all around you, but you can't really like fly from zone to zone. You would probably just have to exit out of the portal and travel to another part of Azeroth and jump into that rift or something like that. Or there could be some way to design your way around it so you can freely travel between each of these different Shadowlands rifts. Although I can definitely imagine an outcry coming from players anyway. Oh my gosh, Blizz, you're recycling content or something like that. I just think that this sounds like a better reflection of what the Shadowlands could be, an upside down, instead of just another landmass to check out and eventually leave. And then there's the information from this second leak, just how it is we get to the 9.0 expansion. To summarize, Sylvanas is going to fool the Alliance and Horde Rebellion into defending Thunder Bluff, while she actually captures Stormwind. This turns into a final Siege of Stormwind raid, where players team together to put an end to Sylvanas' plans, and somehow old god bosses are involved. The final battles will end with fighting Sylvanas not once, but twice. The first battle has the Rebels and Alliance fighting her, and then after that, oh boy, here we go. The Lich King comes in and kills Lorthamar, and he declares for the Alliance. In response, Sylvanas kills again. The entire Horde then somehow rallies under Sylvanas' banner, and it's on. The final raid battle is a faction-on-faction bloodbath that, in the end, it leaves no one standing. Until, that is, they're all standing in the Shadowlands. Woohoo. I admit that I'm being a naysayer, Debbie Downer, whatever you want to call it, but what? Dude, this sounds like some crazy-ass fanfiction, if you ask me. Siege of Stormwind? Yeah. I can buy into that. I mean, there's plenty of foreshadow that we can look back on to assert that, yeah, of course, Sylvanas wants Stormwind bodies, something. But the Lich King, having done pretty much nothing this entire expansion, coming in from downtown and declaring himself for the Alliance, and the Alliance being okay with it? And on top of that, for the Horde Rebellion to respond like, oh snap, Lorthamar's dead, there's the Lich King, I guess we better work with Sylvanas again, here we go. And all of this is supposed to happen between 2 raid encounters. I gotta say that this is a little bit hard to swallow. And then, because of course there's an and then, this leak has Gallywix saving Mechatork. And then the 2 of them, they pretty much create this MacGuffin that lets people travel to and from the Shadowlands. Doesn't that kind of negate Sylvanas' entire motivation in Battle for Azeroth? It's the really outlandish, extreme stuff like this that makes me not think of these leaks as leaks, but it's just grandiose speculation to look at it with nothing more than an eye for fun. And this is fun, by the way, don't get me wrong, see, I'm wiggling. If just a few of these bullet points were left out, or like I said earlier, if they just didn't provide any context and just left these images, then we can leave it to the fans to tear themselves apart. We can watch the chaos. The speculation would drive people bananas. But on the other side of providing too much information is that there's just a lot of other stuff missing. I'm going to provide a list on screen. Here we go. Vol'jin, Thrall, Sarfang, Zakan, Magni, Khadgar, the choices that Horde players had and the consequences of being a loyalist. Oh, and we forgot that there's a big-ass sword causing the planet to still hemorrhage. Point is, there's a lot of unsettled business that I think really should be addressed before we move on. So I would have an alternate route in mind. So maybe we can see this Shadowlands experience. Maybe it'll start off with not going to the Shadowlands. Maybe it'll start off instead as a post-war period where we're just trying to take care of this whole, oh, Azeroth got stabbed business. So instead of immediately accessing the Shadowlands, we instead go to the Dragon Isles because the solution's there. We found out how to save Azeroth. Let's go there first. The war's over. Let's take care of other things now. And then while leveling, we find out, oh, Anduin Sylvanas, hey, you guys are alive, and you're beckoning me to come over. Are you serious? I'm not gonna kill myself. So we'll have some new adventures over there, and then once we reach max level, then we're going back and forth between the Dragon Isles and the Shadowlands for shenanigans, to protect it from the old gods, to get transmog, you know, that sort of thing. Maybe that wouldn't sound as exciting, but it definitely makes... okay, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. So right now, let's move away from the context of the leaks and just get into why leaks of this level don't happen over at Blizzard. One of the bullet points said that probably nobody can tell who attended the meeting, who sat there, and so on. I call it bullshit. I haven't done too much, but I've done enough corporate level stuff in the gaming industry to understand that when you're going to be called in to a meeting containing highly sensitive information, sure, you might not remember everyone who's there, but the important people, the ones who set up this meeting, they definitely do. Revealing a map like this, dude, it's not like a BlizzCon panel that everyone could just kind of walk into and walk away and be like, oh cool, take a look at that, click click. The people who saw this are need to know. So for example, this might be an instance of artists who are going to start drawing the actual in-game world, and that's going to provide context for the quest designers. We've got to consider from a developer standpoint just who is meant to have access to all this information. Not everyone knows everything. Now, that said, I haven't worked for Blizzard. I don't know how much information is known from the top down, or what their policy is on, say, compartmentalizing information, keeping cell phones at their desks, and so on. But it's common sense that no one person can simply ask around and get a map, a cinematic screenshot, release dates on a comic, plot points, encounter information, and more. These are all separate things that are probably known by separate people, except for the people at the very top. If someone is able to get all that information and release all of it at once, you figure that the investigation to find out who the leaker was wouldn't take that long, and that's the sort of stuff that just isn't worth risking. Getting fired for something like this is only the beginning of your trouble. Now I ask you to also consider information that can be leaked much more easily, like, I don't know, what's coming in patch 825, because internally, that stuff is very far along. There are a lot more people who know about what's coming in 825, including QA testers. So why wasn't that information also released along with these 8.3 or 9.0 leaks? Maybe it's because it's just around the corner and it's not interesting enough. That's fair. But can we really believe that the person who's finding out all this other stuff somehow couldn't or wouldn't get information on what was immediately happening next? Imagine if we learned about things that came out of nowhere, like the party sync, and on top of that came all these 8.3 and 9.0 spoilers. That would absolutely blow people's minds, and it would lend huge credibility to these leaks. But of course we don't see that. I wonder why. A leak that doesn't also contain information that's just around the corner, it's just bait, lies, speculation. Speculation is fun, and I won't mind talking about that sort of stuff going forward, but that's all it really is going to be, just a reaction to speculation, because not for a second should you think it's true. That's it for me, but what do you folks at home and elsewhere think about this? I gave my opinion, but do you folks look at this with any level of seriousness? After all, these sorts of leaks and speculations are based on pretty good predictions. Do you see this as kind of an inspiration of what we're most likely going to see at BlizzCon? Share your thoughts in a comment below, and otherwise, I'll see you for the next thing that I do. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.